I'm entrenched in metal. Like
Right.
if you name a metal band, I probably have a story.
Fellas, in the world of heavy metal, there are a couple of bands or artists that extremely stand out, that raised the bar, that rewrote the rules, that changed the game. Let's
Mm,
talk about some of our favorites tonight. What do you say?
yeah. There are tons, but we narrowed it down to one pick each, right?
Yeah, that's hard to do. Now, are there going to be any honorable mentions?
Wait a minute
No,
now. Wait a minute. Hold
No,
on.
it's going to be one.
For this exercise, we should only
Discipline.
be,
It's about
yeah,
discipline.
disciplined. We should be picking one.
Aaron is going first.
Yes, it was important to me that we didn't all like go and choose the same bands or something or same musicians because we could do something like that. And we talk about this stuff all the time. There's a lot of bands that we talk about a lot on the podcast. And I wanted to make sure that I talked about somebody that I haven't talked about, or at least not a lot. So, who really made an impact on metal and on me, right? And it hit me like a bolt of lightning. And I thought, the 90s was a weird time for metal. It started off, metal was huge because of like what Metallica and Megadeth had done, and all these bands got mainstream success, and then a bunch of other bands sort of followed in that footstep. A lot of metal bands were more popular than ever, and then it took a big weird dive, like Bruce Dickinson left Iron Maiden, Rob Halford left Judas Priest, Obituary stopped playing, Death stopped playing, into the mid 90s, into the late 90s, right? Metal was in a weird spot. There were always bands that were still standing out and bands that were still kicking ass, but it was just in a weird state. And for me, I wasn't listening to a lot of metal for the first time in my life. And I was kind of drifting away from it. So the band that brought me back was like sort of a spearhead of a whole movement of metal. But I always put them at the face of it, uh, In Flames, because there was new metal going on. There was all this weird stuff, and metal had lost its edge, in my opinion. I think in a lot of people's opinion. And In Flames and a bunch of those Swedish bands were the bands that saved metal to me. They brought me back into it. Greg first introduced me to them. It was probably 1999. We weren't even in a band together at that point, but you were like, I don't know how you even threw them at me, but you played them for me, and I was like, what the hell is this? There were twin guitars, there were harmonies, there was this old school Iron Maiden approach to guitar and Thin Lizzy, and I didn't even really know Thin Lizzy very well back then, but they were doing this sort of throwback metal, and it was combining it with the death metal kind of growl,
That,
guttural kind of vocals.
that
Say
Clayman
again?
that we heard first.
No. The first one I heard, I think, was Horacle,
Okay.
and so that just blew me away, and especially those first four albums for me, the Lunar Strain and Jester Race. Well, they combine those into later. Horacle, Colony, and Clayman. Those brought me back into metal. Suddenly I was like looking at bands like At the Gates and Arch Enemy and Amon Amarth and all those, and Opeth and all those Swedish bands that were, they had all been around, but I didn't really know about any of them. In Flames opened that door for me. And I remember every time I would hear they weren't new, they were out already, those first four albums. But when I'd hear one for the first time, it was like eating a pack of candy for me. I remember even saying that to Greg back then, like 99, 2000. It's like, it was so sweet and so catchy and so many great riffs. And I was listening to them today to kind of put myself back in that mind space of when I first heard them. And it's no wonder that it hit me so hard because, every song is memorable. That everyone has like these things where you go, oh man, here comes that riff, here comes that solo or whatever. So I really, yeah, that's the band for me, as far as among many, but that's my pick for a band that made a huge impact on me and on metal, because once then I'm gonna give In Flames credit for Bruce Dickinson coming back to Iron Maiden and Rob Halford coming back to Judas Priest and Obituary getting back together, in 2004. That's all because of In Flames. So and I have Greg to thank for that. That's a running theme in this band and in this podcast is Greg has he's looked out for us over the years. He's shown us a lot of good music. He's
turned you on to Manowar.
That's right.
I mean, come on. I could have picked Manowar too. Yeah, you turned us on to Manowar and you the Drink Hawk. You got you got me that Beastie Boys action figure. So yeah, all thanks to Greg and In Flames.
There you go, man. Yeah, I remember we heard them at the same time, and yeah, incredible band that kind of took the old vibe and put a modern spin with more modern production and yeah, mixing in the death metal aspect of it. And it was kind of like just what needed to hit at that time. And they gained traction pretty quickly. And if you recall, we even got to open, our old band Forge got to open for In Flames. It was the Clayman tour, I'm pretty sure. At the old IROC in Detroit here. And a venue that's no longer around, but a super historic venue that, man, everybody played there over the years, especially in that, hard rock, metal, some death metal stuff that came through that if they were too small to play harpos, they would be at the IROC for sure. So I remember that. That was a great show for sure.
You guys know I saw In Flames in New York, right? Did I ever tell you that story?
It sounds familiar, but I don't remember any particulars.
I think it was at I'm going to get the name of the club wrong, but is there a club called Lemoore, or did there used to be a club called Lemoore? And it's not in like New York City proper. It was kind of like going to Harpo's or something. It felt like it was in a pretty bad neighborhood, and the venue was probably, I'd say it was comparable to maybe St. Andrews size, maybe a little bit smaller. But I saw In Flames, and I don't remember what tour it was, but I saw them in New York at this like pretty tiny club, and it was when they were just like blowing up. They were just like starting to get really, really big. I mean, they got really big shortly after I saw them in New York, but that show was great.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
I love seeing a cool show out of town. I don't do it too often. But that's really fun to me.
The problem
venturing out.
The interesting thing about this show was we took a cab to the venue, and then we just figured it's New York. We'll get a cab when we come out, and we were in a neighborhood where cabs just weren't.
Oh wow!
This is before like Uber or any of that. We didn't even have. I mean, I don't even know if I had like a cell phone that could do data or anything, like it was just there were no cabs. So we had to like eventually like call a cab company and then just wait for some poor guy to drive out to where we were.
Wow.
So, it was, the end of the night was a little dicey, but the concert itself was great.
Right on.
Yeah, so you had an adventure as well as seeing a great show.
Yeah, well, there's nothing like being in a weird neighborhood in New York, when you don't know where you're at.
Were the Warriors like coming around the corner as the cab pulled up?
That's what I envisioned.
Man, that's awesome. Good pick, Aaron. Hey, by the way, what are you drinking over there? What you got?
Oh, I got myself see here it is. I don't lie to you. Greg introduced me to this Mortal Bloom from Founders when we were out in Muskegon playing our show in April back a few weeks ago, a month ago. And we drank this while we were on stage.
We drank that in the mall, Aaron.
Oh man, we got rebels.
We did. Yeah, we did. Greg, Steve might have been the only one who was allowed to play the show if we had been arrested.
That's funny. They'd be like, hey, what do you have over there, tall guy? Oh, sir, I don't have anything. Okay, carry on.
It's just a rental, sir. Carry on.
I remember sort of looking for permission from like the sound guys, and I'm like, I asked them, is it going to be a big deal if we have a beer or two, before we play or, while we're playing? He's like, man, this is Muskegon.
Yeah.
So
That's
that was his
awesome.
answer. And
That's-
after that, I was like, all right, cool.
All
Right.
right.
I got stories about everything, Steve.
I know you do because you have seen things that you wouldn't.
I'm entrenched in metal. Like
Right.
if you name a metal band, I probably have a story.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then it's between me and you. And since you said you have a cool story, I got to hear the story.
All right.
All right. Well, this is going to work out good as a segue, anyways, because it's going to keep with the Swedish theme. So I started thinking about this question, and initially I was thinking about musicians. And then once you guys sort of opened it up and said, no, it could be a band, I'm like, all right, so let me think about what me and my friends used to do. And I've told this story before, but we would go to Royal Oak or somewhere like that to record stores like every Friday. And we would a lot of times just buy music, what we called on a whim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there were certain labels that we would look for, like, obviously like Earache was big. There was Nuclear Blast. There was Century Media. There was, this like handful of like known metal labels. And generally, if you liked one or two bands on that label, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to like something else, even if you haven't heard it. And this was before the time of the internet, or
And if it had,
where it was
if it had cool cover art too, that always helps.
right, exactly. So you didn't have a way, unless you were buying a bunch of magazines, to really like know whether or not what you were buying was good. So
Mhm.
half the fun was just buying something that looked cool and you thought it might be cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you got burned.
Yep.
Century Media was notorious. I think it was Colin that used to always say, you're really taking your chances with Century Media.
Yeah.
I can hear him
like-
saying that right now. I can hear him.
So yeah, so if you were the one that week that picked up something that was on Century Media, Colin would always be right there in your ear. You're really taking your chances on Century Media.
Right.
So
But it says Morgoth. Look at this cover. It's got to be
Right.
good.
right. So that was half the fun, was like, who's going to get burned this week? Who's going to
Right.
buy something that's like just not good?
Yeah.
So as a result of those weekly trips, we would buy a lot of things that we hadn't heard of and had no idea what it was. And speaking of Colin, that's when I remember this so vividly, because this particular EP had such an impact on us all, because we were listening to it in the car as soon as we had left the record store. We were listening to it in the car, and like literally everybody in the car, their jaw was on the ground. We had just never heard anything like so well produced, so well executed, and then just mind-blowing musicianship. So this is a band that, like Aaron, I've sort of fallen off of their bandwagon, but they're very successful. But for me, it's like this EP really kicked the door open, and then I really loved the next record, and we went back and got the first one. So the band is Meshuggah, and you might not, think that I'd be picking Meshuggah, but if you go back and listen to the Nun EP, which came out in '94, like nobody was doing that kind of like technical, over the top produced and executed, technical metal. Like they just, I think it took other bands like 10 years to start doing what Meshuggah was doing,
Yeah, completely true.
on that record. And
I know something mind blowing, by the way, that I'll share with you that you probably won't even believe me, but I recently was watching some videos of Meshuggah in the studio recording. And do you know what all those records that you love were recorded on? Fucking ADAT. Not
ADATs, yeah.
ADATs, man. And it just, if you have something good going in, you're good. So they were good because they had a good front end. But yeah, ADAT, I would never have guessed ADATs.
But that Nun EP literally just, we couldn't even believe that was possible. Like they were just so technical and so tight, and like, especially on Nun, and Destroy, Erase, Improve, which came out after it. And we even like, the first one, which is Contradictions Collapse, I think.
Mhm.
We went back and got that one. But I like that era of Meshuggah because they were more like a thrash or death metal band with like heavy progressive rock, like overlay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Even like that, even like Frederick Thorndal, like the way he solos is like a jazz guitar player,
Right.
and so you're expecting like, a Slayer guitar solo, and then they get to the guitar solo and it's this very soft and awesome, like sounding guitar
Yeah. It
that
just
just
hangs
is
there, and it's not very overdriven at all. It's just
right.
so opposite, and it works so good.
Yeah. So that to me is like the one experience with a record just totally raising the bar and like changing everything because there were bands that were dabbling in sort of like what ultimately became Meshuggah's bag, right? Is playing like the really stop starty, syncopated, off the beat, you don't know where one is,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. I mean that is almost every metal band nowadays. But
Mhm.
when this came out, I don't think there was anybody doing it to that extent.
No.
And they just like
They were the OGs of that, the originators of all that stuff.
and we just could not believe what we were hearing. And not just that, but like the production is so good. I listened to it today on some of my walks just to revisit it, and like the intro to that record is still like it's just so good. I cannot believe that they were 10 years ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
I think that album for me is the one that sticks out in my head. And I remember us all being in a car listening to it and nobody was talking. We're like, and then Colin bought it, of course. So then like we got to hear about it for like the next 2 years, how he had the best whim pick
Yeah.
of all time, like undisputed.
Right.
He also holds that same title for Demanufacture by Fear Factory. Remember? Now, I was
Yep.
in the car with you then when we were listening to that, and he had a killer system at that time. Must have had a new car or something like that.
Yeah.
And we rocked Demanufacture on the way to a concert or something like that, and that was just so cool.
It's great because I think all of us back from that generation did that same game where Steve and I would go to the mall and we would like, you only had so much money. You had enough for one tape and maybe a hot Sam pretzel.
That's right.
And you would go, all right, what's going to be? Sometimes it'd be something you knew and you'd heard of and you had other albums by that band or something somebody told you about. But other times it would be like, let's go, we're going to go cold. Like I think we just called it, I think we call it cold or something. I don't know. We didn't say it on a whim, but we would call it like blind or cold. And you just look at the tape. It's before CDs. And we would look at the tape and it would be like, really cool cover because so much metal has great covers. And sometimes you'd find an Obituary, Slowly We Rot. Sometimes you'd find Nasty Savage and you'd force yourself to listen to Nasty Savage for months to try to,
See if you could like it.
yeah, because you spent $10 on it,
Spend a whole week's worth of hot lunch money on that. So
Right.
you gotta like it, man. Yeah.
It's a commitment thing. It really is.
Hey, Greg, what are you drinking over there?
Oh, I'm drinking.
Is it cold and frosty?
I'm drinking a tall boy.
Man, that's
This
an
is actually
abstract can. What is that?
I can't read it.
I see a skull, and then I see like almost like
just a
cool stickers or something.
I think it says down there what it is. Can you read it? It's
No.
called Chromatic Shatter.
All right.
Okay, so
I like that
art
it was
is completely appropriate now that you know the title of it. That's very cool.
Yeah, and I like that it's like chromatic. It's music related, isn't it?
It sure
That
the hell
is.
is. Yes, it is.
So it's by Broadleaf Brewery, and they're in essentially Grand Rapids, but it's a suburb called Kentwood.
Nice.
And on their label, it actually says Kent Weird. So it seems like a cool brewery. I wanna check it out if I'm driving through Grand Rapids
That's right.
anytime
Nice.
soon. So
Well,
yeah, the
hopefully-
can was cool. It's all
hopefully-
silver.
Yeah.
Pretty
Is it-
awesome.
Is it an IPA?
You know it is. It's
I
a
know.
New England IPA. It's a hazy.
Sure.
That's Greg's wheelhouse is the IPA. Now you know if
That's right. Look at that, Aaron.
playing our cards
There you
right,
go.
Voyager 3 might come back to the pyramid scheme, and then you could visit that brewery.
That's right.
you go.
Be right there.
And one of these days, Three Floyds, we're gonna play your Dark Lord Day.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna go through some news real quick. We got a couple of news items. Some just industry and entertainment news, and then some is some Voyager 3 news. So I'll go through it real quick. Did you guys know that Troma is celebrating 50 years? I can't believe that it's been 50. I feel like
Yeah, I
it's
would've-
35 or something.
I would have
That
thought
makes me
40.
feel old. That makes me feel old.
Right, man. But and check this out. When I went to go kind of see what's happening with them because of this, did you know that they have their own streaming channel? It's called Troma Now. That's ridiculous. So like, for whatever amount of money, you can sign up for that, and then I think you can probably watch almost all of the content they've done. That might be cool to subscribe to for a bit, and then check out a whole bunch of stuff because they have a lot of cool stuff. And for me, I might not want to buy it all, but I would love to watch it or stream it or something like that. So I don't know,
Mhm.
kind of
That's
cool.
awesome.
I like all that stuff.
I know, man. Oh, by the way, I forgot the name of the company, but there's a company that's releasing Combat Shock LP. Never been available before. Like I don't think they ever made a copy of the score to that. It was just too obscure.
Gotcha.
But I didn't remember the score so much because I saw the movie twice back in the 90s and really dug it. I've mentioned it before, but I revisited the music because it's on YouTube. Somebody ripped it from somewhere, and it's cool. So I may pick up that album.
That's cool.
I'll put in the description who's releasing it and a link for it. But then at tromadirect.com, they have a big sale on a whole bunch of Blu-rays and DVDs and shirts and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And then what else is happening? Oh yeah, the Scored to Death documentary is almost finished. That's a documentary by J. Blake Fischera. He's doing I think this is his second or third documentary that has to do with film composers and film music for usually horror movies. But what is available right now is the horror theme compilation album that Voyager 3 contributed a song to. We did Phantasm. And
Yes.
I also did a couple. That's right. I did a couple of cues to Day of the Dead too. But at their Bandcamp page, I'll link that too in the description. They have pre-sale for the vinyl and the CD, and it ships on May 31st. So that's coming right up. So if you want to grab a vinyl copy of that, get to that.
And what's really cool about this release is you never know what color you're going to get on vinyl.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did what's called colorways, right? Isn't that what that's called? I think there's a certain name for it, where basically to keep costs down, you have them make you a record by whatever extra vinyl is available at the pressing plant from whatever projects they just did. There's always like extra in the hopper.
Yeah, so a bunch of people have been posting pictures of theirs, and I would say I haven't seen a repeat yet.
Right,
So
right.
it's pretty cool.
The next film that we scored is called Killer Cabbage, and you can see Killer Cabbage finally. For right now, the first screening that's been announced is at Gen Con in Indianapolis, Indiana, on Saturday, August 3rd at 10:30 p.m. And you got to go to gencon.com for tickets or information or specific stuff like that. So we're excited for people to see this film and to hear our music for it, and we'll have more information about our score coming out very soon. What else? Oh, once again, we'll be performing and be at Motor City Nightmares, which is July 26, 27, and 28. Some of the guests include Naomi Grossman, who was in American Horror Story series, some of the seasons. Tom Savini is going to be there. Ray Weiss, and Mekhi Phifer, who was in the Dawn of the Dead remake, amongst many other films, of course. So we'll be there on Saturday and Sunday, and we're playing the Saturday night, kind of that's the tradition we do quite often. So it's a great time. It's a great hang. And when Tom Savini's there, come on.
Yep.
Static Tape is going to be there.
That's right. I just saw that today. Absolutely. That is all I have for the news. And of course, you can always get your latest Voyager 3 merch at the Voyager3store.com, VOYAG3R store.com. My musician pick, I'm going with a musician in particular. When I gave the topic to the guys, it could kind of be either way. It could be a whole band or it could be a musician. So my pick is Steve DiGiorgio, who is a bassist who has been in so many bands. Let me name just a few. We got Death, and he's actually a founding Thetis, which is a early '90s metal band from the California area, and he was also in Control Denied and Charred Walls of the Dam with Death alum Richard Christie, who is also on the album that we played, that we did Phantasm on, the Scored to Death record. He's on there playing drums with another guy, and they did Profondo Rosso cover, and I think one other one too. So it's a whole bunch of connections here, and some of it's intentional, and some of it's absolutely not intentional. He's been playing in bands since '84, basically, and let's see. He's also been in Testament. I think he's in Testament right now, but he's been in Testament before. And he kind of goes in and out. And believe it or not, he was even in Sebastian Bach's band sometime in the early 2000s, I think, something like that. So he's been in all kinds of different stuff. That's just naming a few.
He also played on the latest Megadeth, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
yep.
It's true.
Yes, indeed. So to me, he's one of the most innovative bass players that I've heard in such a long time, especially in metal, because what ends up happening, not all the time, but what ends up happening in metal a lot is that the bass just kind of follows the guitar, or it's very minimal. And to a certain extent, it kind of has to be that way because the guitars are so thick and loud and prevalent that there's not really a lot of space for a bass to do a lot. Sometimes you can get creative and insert yourself in certain parts and whatnot, but Steve DiGiorgio, not only is he incredibly innovative and he plays parts that most people would never think to even play over riffs, but he plays fretless almost exclusively. I don't think there's really any time where he plays a fretted bass, and he has several kinds of fretless. He has a 4-string, 5-string, and a 3-string, believe it or not. And he's so innovative, and the parts that he plays, like listen to Death Human and listen to Individual Thought Patterns by Death and The Gathering by Testament. But his playing is just ridiculous in all the best ways. I'll tell you, if you really want to get a flavor for what he's doing, I think it's Earthquaker Devices. If it's not Earthquaker Devices, it's one of the pedal companies. But they have 2 or 3 videos where it's just Steve DiGiorgio, like in like a little bit of a kind of a studio setting, and he's just playing along with songs that he has recorded years past. But the mix of it is so that you can hear what he's doing. So it's all him with multiple camera angles, and the bass is way up. I mean, he's playing the bass, then, and then the track is in the background. So you can really hear the bass like full featured, because that's what it's all about in this particular setting. And you see exactly what he's doing, and he just pounds the shit out of that bass. I heard the bass go, "Help me." It's just so good. So check out those videos. I'll link them too in the description, some of the highlights of that. But he approached metal in a way that I've never heard anybody else do. And all the bands that he was in totally rewrote the rules, especially, in my opinion, Death, with the help of Paul Masvidal, who's a very progressive in jazz and metal player. That was the 2 of the guys on Human, Death's record from '91. Just incredible innovation and just stuff you never heard before. So when I first heard that, I couldn't even believe it. It's like Jaco Pastorius meets metal. I mean, I'm being, oversimplifying it, but incredible. So check out anything that Steve DiGiorgio has done. And speaking of jazz, I just learned this today when I was doing some last minute notes for this episode. But Steve DiGiorgio was actually in a jazz band and formed in '92. So my guess is that they don't play super often. They probably just do it when they have time to do it. But it's called Dark Hall, and I've never even heard it. So I have a note here that tomorrow or the next day I'm gonna go somewhere on YouTube, or maybe it's on streaming, and see if I can find any albums by Dark Hall and see what that's all about. I'm intrigued.
That's crazy, because we always knew he brought this jazz influence into metal, and it would make obviously a lot of sense that he would be in a jazz band, but I never knew he was in a jazz band at all. So
exactly same.
And one of the best things is, as far as DiGiorgio and Death, is one of the greatest miracles that ever happened was when they remixed and remastered Human, because his bass was buried so bad on that album. You could hear it every once in a while in the basically the quiet parts or the breakdowns, where it was just bass, and or you could hear tiny little things he would do that would cut through everybody else twice on the album, right? And then it must have been 2011, I think, when they, or 2010, when they remixed and remastered it, made the guitars less boxy, less bassy, brought the bass up to a beautiful level, and then it made the drums sound better, it made the guitar sound better, it made the whole album sound better, and you could hear all this insane, absolutely insane stuff that DiGiorgio is doing on bass all throughout Human. You could hear that stuff way more in Individual Thought Patterns, and you could definitely get a vibe for what he was doing. But now with Human, you can hear it there too, and it's just phenomenal.
Yep, absolutely. And to top it all off, I've seen now probably 3 or 4 interviews that he's done. Like, did you know that the guy from Atheist, I forgot his name now, Kelly something, I can't remember, but he has a podcast, and he's got all the classic guys on that show over the months and years. So Paul Masvidal was on there, and he gave like a 2-hour long interview, and he was talking about how he met Steve DiGiorgio and how Steve DiGiorgio met Chuck and all that kind of stuff. And then I've seen other interviews where Steve DiGiorgio has interviewed himself, and he is the most down to earth guy. I know it's like almost cliche to say that, but like, he's just like, yeah, I play bass and I have fun doing it, and I've been so lucky to be in these bands that have done this stuff. And he's one of the main guys who keeps Death to All going. This kind of new configuration that's usually Gene Hoglan and Steve, and then I forgot the other guy's name who actually sings and does Chuck's part. He's also the other guitarist in Cynic, and he is an incredible player, and I feel terrible that I can't remember his name right at this moment. But those guys go out, they're on tour right now, playing Death and keeping it alive, and I've seen it 2 different times over the years, and it's incredible. And Steve DiGiorgio is a big part of keeping that alive and keeping that going. He's just contributed immeasurably to that stuff. I mean, that's definitely one of my influences when it comes to the headspace of bass, no doubt. Not just the fretless part, just the way to think about it and try to carve out something that stands out, that complements the rest of the song, but might not just be following the guitar. Sometimes you got to follow the guitar, but
For sure. And sometimes he follows the guitar, but
absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, he does. It's like I don't know how he could come up with that. So I really don't even understand it. As long as I've been playing music, I don't know where his mind comes, what angle he's coming at to be able to make such abstract things and make them work so well in that context of metal. It's amazing.
And on top of all that, it is a fretless bass.
Right.
That is, so for people who don't know, it's hard to play a fretless bass because
there's
no
frets
are what makes it in tune. When you hit a G, it's G, but if you don't hit the right spot for your note on a fretless, it's not in tune. You have to know where to hit, and he's going so fast and doing so much crazy stuff. He's always in tune. I've never heard him be out of tune. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah, he is. Hey,
And imagine you're so good that somebody needs an entire album recorded like quickly, and you're the guy they call, you know.
right.
And I think
right.
about what that Megadeth scenario.
Yeah.
He had to just go in and play the whole record. And I'm sure like he's just one of those dudes. It probably took him like half a day to learn the record or
Right.
something, you know, like he's like, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow and I'll just lay it down. It's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Man, I know. Absolutely crazy. Well, there you have it. So, as Greg said earlier, let us know what musicians or bands that you think have totally upped the bar, rewrote the rules, evolved the genre in heavy metal for you. Because you know what that means is we might discover somebody new that we haven't heard before.
True.
So I always like that.
Hey, Steve, what are you drinking?
Oh, man. You know what I got? It's still cold. It's still got the sweat on the outside of the can. Look at that. It's one of my old friends, the Red Bull Peach. It is so tasty.
Nice.
Cheers.
One day I'll have to try the Red Bull Peach. That I'll try. I'm not going to try the coconut, but I'll try the peach.
I feel like you might like the coconut more than the peach. Well, I don't
Damn
know.
you,
I don't know.
Steve.
No, they're both good. You know, the peach is damn good. Even the Monsters peach is really good.
I'm a classic Red Bull. I can't.
Classic.
I'm not. I don't even want to know other flavors exist.
Right. Same here.
I hear you. Yeah. So let us know in the comments, and if you have any questions about anything else, that we've talked about, let us know. You can write us at askv3cast@gmail.com or in the comments on YouTube or on our socials, whatever. It's all good. So in the meantime, spin our vinyl, listen to old episodes of the podcast, tell your friends. And if you do like our podcast, go ahead and subscribe and give us a like and stream us on Spotify or Apple Music. And until next time, this has been V3Cast.